Um, because Tobit, right, this is an apocryphal book. He quotes Amos and the whole situation, right, that Tobit goes through. It's telling you to not be doing the feasts. But you start in Malachi um, because it's all about every time you see people, these rebukes to feasting, you're going to see a rebuke to, or people being told to fulfill the royal law. Because instead of feasting, you should be doing the sacrifice that God is well pleased with, the royal law. Because you see in Hebrews 13, 15, and 16, that the sacrifice that God is well pleased with is your communication. Um, so I'll just read that actually for you right now. Okay. So Hebrews 13, starting verse 15. By him, therefore, let us offer the sacrifice of praise to God continually. That is the fruit of our lips, giving thanks to his name. Right? Give thanks to his name by declaring his name, so that whosoever shall call upon his name shall be saved. But to do good and to communicate, forget not. Right? Do good if ye fulfill the royal law according to James chapter 2, right? According to the scripture, thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself, ye do well. But if you're a respected persons, you're convinced of the law as a transgressor. Right, so do well in James 2, verse 8 is the same thing as do good here. Right, and right before that says, do not they blaspheme the worthy name by which you're called. Right, but then the people that are fulfilling the royal law, loving the neighbor as himself, they are proclaiming his name. They're not blaspheming his name. But to do good and to communicate, forget not. For with such sacrifices God is well pleased. So that's the sacrifice that God is well pleased with, your communication, fulfilling the royal law. And so now you hop over to Malachi 1, and it talks about Edom. Okay, what did Edom Esau, right? Edom means Esau. So what did Esau do? He sold his birthright for a meal. Okay, and so how do you see people doing that today? You have the Christians where they're doing these pagan feasts, right? Christmas, it comes from like sacrificing your children to Baal. Same thing with Easter. Same thing with Halloween. Okay, they're doing all these pagan festivals, pagan feasts to their Jesus guy, but his name isn't even Jesus, right? They're blasting his name continually, right? You got that in Isaiah 52. And so now you see here in that Esau, right? It's not only the Christians that are doing these pagan feasts, but you also have the Torah movement that are trying to do God's feasts like Passover, unleavened bread, and stuff like that. But they're doing it in a profane land on a profane calendar. They're trying to do it in Mystery Babylon in America instead of going over to Jerusalem. They don't even have the calendar because God took away the calendar. You see that in Lamentations 2, I believe. But so starting in Malachi 1, it talks about these groups of people. But even more so, I'm going to be highlighting the Torah Terrace, the Torah movement. The burden of the word of Jehovah to Israel by Malachi. I have loved you, saith Jehovah. Yet ye say, wherein hast thou loved us? Was not Esau Jacob's brother? Saith Jehovah. Yet I loved Jacob, and I hated Esau, and laid his mountains and his heritage waste for the dragons of the wilderness. Where he hated Esau, he hated the people that were coveting after God's feasts, right? Because they sold their inheritance, because many were called, right, to be the 144,000, but then few chose to enter the work. So they sold the white stone or whatever you want to call it, to for these feasts. Right? They didn't want to fulfill the royal law. They turned from the holy commandment that was delivered unto them, and then they went back to the ways of the world, the cares of the world, the covetousness. Whereas Edom, Esau saith, we are impoverished, but we will return and build the desolate places. Thus saith Jehovah of hosts, they shall build, but I'll throw down, and they shall call them the board of the wickedness, and the people against whom Jehovah hath indignation forever. And your eye shall see, and you shall say, Jehovah will be magnified from the board of Israel. A son honoreth his father, and a servant his master. If then I be a father, where is mine honor? And if I be a master, where is my fear? Saith Jehovah of hosts unto you. O priests that despise my name, ye say, and ye say, wherein have we despised thee? Right, so the Christian church, they're saying, we're calling on your name, right? They think, oh, whoever calls upon his name will be saved. But then they don't see how Yeshua says, not everyone that says unto me, Lord, Lord, shall be saved. right? Because he's gonna say to all these people that, "Didn't we cast out demons in your name? Didn't we do many all these works in your name?" But then he's gonna say, "Depart from me. I never knew you," right? And you never knew me because they weren't keeping the Ten Commandments. You see that in 1 John 2, 3, and 4, right? By this we know that we know God or whatever when we keep his commandments. He that says that I know him and keeps not his commandments is a liar, and the truth is not in him. But so they're saying like, oh, where we despise your name? They're calling on Jesus instead of on Yeshua, because Yeshua is the Messiah's true name, and Yeshua comes in his father's name. His father's name is Jehovah. That's how you get right. Do not they blaspheme that worthy name by which you are called? So now in verse 7, ye offer polluted bread upon mine altar, and ye say, wherein have we polluted thee? And that ye say, the table of Jehovah is contemptible. Right, and that word contemptible is like defiled, right? Because they're offering these profane sacrifices, these profane feasts on God's altar. Right, and that's through the Christians doing their Christmas feast and the Torah moon and stuff like that. Even the Jews doing these or doing these God's feasts in a polluted land. Right? They say the table of Jehovah is contemptible because they think they could do whatever they want. They could just be presumptuous about how to follow God's commandments. We can't be presumptuous. Um, and if ye offer the blind for sacrifice, is it not evil? And ye offer the lame and sick, is it not evil? Offer it now unto thy governor. Will he be pleased with thee, or accept thy person, saith Jehovah of hosts? Right, so instead they should be giving the good tidings to these to the lame, to the sick, and whatnot, instead of offering them as a sacrifice and stuff. And now I pray you, beseech God, that he will be gracious unto us. This hath been by your means. Will he regard your persons, saith Jehovah of hosts? Who is there even among you that would shut the doors for naught? Neither do ye kindle fire on mine altar for naught. I have no pleasure in you, saith Jehovah of hosts, neither will I accept an offering at your hand. For from the rising of the sun even unto the going down of the same, my name shall be great among the Gentiles. Right, and his name is going to be great among the Gentiles because the watchmen are proclaiming his name to the ends of the earth. And in every place incense shall be offered unto my name, and a pure offering, for my name shall be great among the heathen, saith Jehovah of hosts. But ye have profaned it, in that ye say, the table of Jehovah is contemptible, or is polluted, and the fruit thereof, even his meat, is contemptible. Ye said also, behold, what a weariness is it, and ye have snuffed at it, saith Jehovah of hosts. And ye brought that which was torn, and the lame and the sick. Thus ye brought an offering. Should I accept this of your hand, saith Jehovah of hosts? Um, and so, right, this is the same thing that you get with like Cain um, and Esau. Um, where they're not offering the sacrifice that God is well pleased with. That's as I was saying at the beginning. Um, But cursed be the deceiver which hath in his flock a male and voweth and sacrifices unto Jehovah a corrupt thing. Right? Because these are abominations in his eyes. Um, you go over to Isaiah 66, and he tells you that plainly. So Isaiah 66, verse 1, thus saith Jehovah, the heaven is my throne and the earth is my footstool. Where is the house that ye built unto me? And where is the place of my rest? For all those things hath mine hand made, and all those things have been, saith Jehovah. But to this man will I look, even to him that is poor and of a contrite spirit. For blessed are the poor in spirit, and trembleth at my word. Or they're listening to his word. They have their ear nailed to the door, and they even get the key of David through that. Um, but to these people that tremble at the word, they're not going to be presumptuous about doing God's feasts in a profane land. Because those people, right, in verse 3, he that kills an ox is as if he slew a man. He that sacrifices a lamb as if he cut off a dog's neck. Right, so to the servants, the people that are cutting off the dogs or cutting off the ox, it's as if to the servants that you killed a man. Same thing with the dog's neck. It's as if you or sacrificing a lamb, like for Passover, it's as if to the servants that you cut off a dog's neck. He that offereth an oblation, as if he offered swine's blood. He that burneth incense, as if he blessed an idol. Yea, they have chosen their own ways through presumptuousness, and their soul delighteth in their abominations. I also will choose their delusions and will bring their fears upon them. Because when I called you to be a servant, to pick up your staff of authority, right? It's not your pagan Roman cross, your staff of authority and walk. None did answer. When I spake, they did not hear, but they did evil before mine eyes, and chose that in which I delighted not. So back to Malachi 1. Um, let's see here. Um, so to verse 13 again. Ye also said, Behold, what a weariness is it, and ye have snuffed at it, saith Jehovah of hosts. And ye brought that which was torn, and the lame, and the sick, thus ye brought an offering. Should I accept this of your hand, saith Jehovah? But cursed be the deceiver, which hath in his flock a male, and voweth, and sacrifice unto Jehovah a corrupt thing. For I am a great king, saith Jehovah of hosts, and my name is dreadful among the heathen. Um, and this is now before I go to Malachi 2, where you got to hop over to Tobit, because even Tobit is pointing to what Malachi is about to say. And so you're going to get like how a lot of people in the Torah movement, they love to quote um, Tobit saying, "Oh, it's okay to do the feast outside the land," not realizing that um, Tobit's actually telling you to not do the feast outside the land by what happened with Tobit. So I'll start at the beginning, chapter 1. Just the first two chapters. The book of the words of Tobit, son of Tobiel, the son of Enaniel, the son of Aduel, the son of Gabiel, of the seed of Asiel, of the tribe of Naphtali, who in the time of Enamesar, king of the Syrians, was led captive out of Thesbe, which is at the right hand of that city, which is called properly Naphtali, in Galilee, above Asher. I, Tobit, have walked all the days of my life in the ways of truth and justice. And I did many almsdeed to my brethren and my nation who came with me to Nineveh, into the land of the Assyrians. Right? Nineveh represents Babylon, right? And these days we're in Mystery Babylon. So he's like in the same situation as us, right? In captivity. Because we're in Mystery Babylon today. And when I was in mine own country, in the land of Israel, being but young, all the tribe of Naphtali, my father, fell from the house of Jerusalem, which was chosen out of all the tribes of Israel, that all the tribes should sacrifice there. Right? So you're not supposed to sacrifice in any place that you choose, but just in Jerusalem. You get this in Deuteronomy 12, because God specifically tells you where to do the feast. In Deuteronomy 12 and Deuteronomy 16. You got to go read those chapters. Um, And even everything that I'm saying, like, don't believe my words, but you got to go read it for yourself. Um, where the temple of the habitation of the Most High was consecrated and built for all ages. Now all the tribes which together revolted in the house of my father Naphtali sacrificed unto the heifer Baal. But I alone went often to Jerusalem at the feast, where he went to Jerusalem to do the feast, as it was ordained unto all the people of Israel by an everlasting decree, having the first fruits and the tenths of increase with that which was first shorn. And them gave I at the altar to the priests, the children of Aaron. The first tenth parts of all the increase I gave to the sons of Aaron who ministered at Jerusalem. Another tenth parts I stood away and went and spent it every year at Jerusalem. And the third I gave unto them to whom it was meet. At Deborah, my father's mother, had commanded me, because I was left an orphan by my father. Furthermore, when I was come to the age of a man, I married Anna of mine own kindred, and of her I begat Tobias. And when we were carried away captives to Nineveh, all my brethren and those that were of my kindred did eat of the bread of the Gentiles. And so you're told that same thing in Ezekiel 4, about how like when they're carried away, that they're going to eat like the bread of the heathen, and it's going to be their doctrine. But I kept myself from eating. because I remembered God with all my heart. And also, like, it goes back to even eating like unclean animals. And the Most High gave me grace and favor before an emissary, so that I was his purveyor. And I went into Media and left in trust with Gabiel, the brother of Gabrias, at Rages, a city of Media, 10 talents of silver. Now when Enemessar was dead, Sennacherib his son reigned in his stead, whose estate was troubled, that I could not go into Media. And in the time of Enemessar, I gave many alms to my brethren, and gave my bread to the hungry, and my clothes to the naked. Right, this is all idioms for fulfilling the royal law. And if I saw any of my nation dead, I cast about the walls of Nineveh. I buried him. And if the king Sennacherib had slain any when he was come and fled from Judea, I buried them privily. For in his wrath he killed many. But the bodies were not found when they were sought for of the king. And when one of the Ninevites went and complained of me to the king, that I buried them and hid myself, understanding that I was sought for to be put to death, I withdrew myself for fear. Then all my goods were forcibly taken away, neither was there anything left to me, beside my wife Anna and my son Tobias. And there passed not 55 days, so 55 days between two of his sons killed him. And they fled into the mountains of Ararat and Sarchodius, his son, reigned in his stead, who appointed over his father's accounts, and over all his affairs Acariacus, my brother's my brother Anael's son, and Acarchius, entreating for me, I returned to Nineveh. Now Acarchiorus was cupbearer and keeper of the Sigint, and steward and overseer of the accounts, and Sarchindius appointed him next unto him, and he was my brother's son. Now when I was come, this is chapter 2, now when I was come home again, my wife Anna was restored unto me, with my son Tobias, in the feast of Pentecost, which is the holy feast of the 7 weeks. There was a good dinner prepared me, and in the which I sat down to eat. Right, so he's in captivity, and he's getting ready to do the feast. And now you got to see what happens next. And when I was abundance of meat, I said to my son, go and bring what poor men whatsoever thou shalt find out of our brethren, who is mindful of Jehovah. And lo, I tarry for thee. But he came again and said, Father, one of our nation is strangled and is cast out in the marketplace. Then before I had tasted of any of the meats, I started up and took him up into a room until the going down of the sun. Then I returned and washed myself and ate my meat in heaviness, remembering that prophecy of Amos, as he said, your feast shall be turned into mourning, and all your mirth into lamentation. Therefore I wept, and after the going down of the sun, I went, um, I went and made a grave and buried him. But my neighbors mocked me and said, this man is not yet afraid to be put to death for this matter, who fled away, and yet, lo, he burieth the dead again. The same night also I returned from the burial and slept by the wall of my courtyard, being polluted, and my face was uncovered. And I knew not that there were sparrows in the walls, and mine eyes being open. The sparrows muttered warm dung into mine eyes, and a whiteness came in mine eyes, and I went to the physicians, but they helped me not. Moreover, Acarchus did nourish me until I went into Emos. Right, so these birds, they pooped in his eyes, and you're going to see that same thing talked about in Malachi chapter 2. And my wife, Anna, did take women's works to do, and when she had sent them home to the owners, they paid her wages and gave her also besides a kid. And when it was in my house and began to cry, I said unto her, from whence is this kid? Is it not stolen? Render it to the owners, for it is not lawful to eat anything that is stolen. But she replied upon me, it was given for a gift more than wages. Howbeit I did not believe her, but bade her render it to the owners, and I was abashed at her. And she replied upon me, where are thine alms and thy righteous deeds? Behold, thou and all thy works are known. And so the reason why, like he was pooped on, like in his eyes, was it was going back to the feast, right? Because he was not supposed to be doing the feast in a polluted land, where that's even why that you get that quote from Amos. Um, and then let's see here. Yeah, so now I'll hop back to Malachi chapter 2, I think, or actually, let me see what it says in Amos 8. Um, yeah, I think I'll just read Malachi chapter 2. All right, Malachi chapter 2. And now, O ye priests, this commandment is for you. If you will not hear, and if you will not lay it to heart to give glory unto my name, saith Jehovah of hosts, I will even send a curse upon you, and I will curse your blessings. Yea, I have cursed them already, because ye did not lay it to heart. Behold, I will corrupt your seed, and spread dung on your faces, or the same thing that happened to Tobit, even the dung of your solemn feasts. Exactly what Tobit was doing, right? Because he was trying to do a feast in polluted land. And one shall take you away with it, right? So they're going to be taken away into captivity, right? That's exactly what happened with Tobit, and that's what's going to happen to Ephraim, right? Ephraim is the same group of people as Esau, and so if you go over to Hosea, right, it tells you what happens to Ephraim because they're trying to do God's feast in a profane land. Hosea 8, starting verse 11. Because Ephraim hath made many altars to sin, right? They first did Christmas and Easter, altar shall be unto him to sin. I have written unto him the great things of my law, right? Because there's Deuteronomy 12, Deuteronomy 16 that tell you where to do the feast and when to do them and stuff like that. But then you also got um, the royal law in Leviticus 19, right? He wrote unto those great things, but then they kind of as a strange thing. So now they sacrifice the flesh for the sacrifice of mine offerings and eat it, but Jehovah accepted them not. Now will he remember their iniquity and visit their sins. They shall return to Egypt. Right? They're going to return to captivity, to bondage. Right? They're going to go into great tribulation. Verse 4 of Malachi 2. And ye shall know that I have sent this commandment unto you, that my covenant might be with Levi, saith Jehovah of hosts. Right, so what was that covenant? Right, it's the priesthood. Right, the priests, they're going to fulfill the royal law. They're going to give these sacrifices. Right, before at their time, it was these literal, physical sacrifices. But now, right, we got these spiritual sacrifices, which is our communication, right, as I read in Hebrews 13. And so the the and all the sacrifices that the Levites had to do, they had to put salt on it. You see that in Leviticus chapter 2. Right, and so now that salt, it's represented by the grace. You go to Colossians 4, verse 6, right, that it tells you that that salt is the grace, where the conviction that's going to be on your communication. Um, my covenant was with him of life and peace. And I gave them to him for the fear wherewith he feared me, and was afraid because before my name. The law of truth was in his mouth, for he was fulfilling the royal law. And in it, and iniquity was not found in his lips. He walked with me in peace and equity, and did turn many away from righteousness. For the priest's lips shall keep knowledge, and they should seek the law at his mouth. For he is the messenger of Jehovah of hosts. But ye are departed out of the way. Right? So these people that are doing the feast and stuff like that, ye are departed out of the way. Ye have caused many to stumble at the law. Right? Because they're telling people that you have to keep this whole burden of the sacrificial law. And so you hop over to Isaiah 8. Well, actually, first I'll go to, um, let me bookmark this. You first go over to Isaiah 28. And it tells you, right, since you're not reading line upon line, here a little, there a little, precept on precept, they're going to fall, be broken, snared, and taken. Okay, Isaiah 28. Okay, starting at verse, and again, this is talking about Ephraim, right? Because you started verse 1, woe to the crown of pride to the drunkards of Ephraim, right? The people that are trying to do the feast, and then they're going to be brought into great tribulation. So now in verse 9. Whom shall he teach knowledge, and whom shall he make to understand doctrine? Them that are weaned from the milk and drawn from the breast. So you have to be first weaned from the Ten Commandments so that you can receive the Spirit. For priests, it must be upon precept, precept on precept, line upon line, line upon line. Here little and there little. For with stammering lips and another tongue will he speak to this people, because God speaks in idioms through his word. To whom he said, "This is the rest," right? The Sabbath rest that begins from dawn to dawn, and whereas you may cause the word to rest, and this is the refreshing, right? Because Yeshua came to refresh the holy covenant. You get this in like Luke 172, um, Deuteronomy 18. That's the key place quoted from Acts 3, where they're refreshing the holy covenant, yet they would not hear. Right. So then there's going to be these two groups of people that stumble. But the word of Jehovah was unto them precept upon precept, line upon line, here little and there little, that they might go and and fall backward and be broken and snared and taken. Rather than be taken into great tribulation. Wherefore hear the word of Jehovah, ye scornful men, that rule this people which is in Jerusalem. Because ye have said, we have made a covenant with death, and with hell are we at agreement. When the overflowing scourge shall pass through, it shall not come unto us. For we have made lies a refuge, and under falsehood have we hid ourselves. Therefore thus saith Jehovah God, Behold, I lay in Zion for a foundation, a stone, a tried stone, a precious cornerstone, a sure foundation. He that believes shall not make haste. And so now you go over to Isaiah 8, which quotes, or it's like quoted back here. I'm going to expound upon this. Okay, verse 9. Associate yourselves, all ye people, and ye shall be broken in pieces, and give ear, all ye of far countries. Gird yourselves, and ye shall be broken in pieces. Gird yourselves, and ye shall be broken in pieces. Take counsel together, and it shall come to naught. Speak the word, and it shall not stand, for God is with us. For Jehovah spake thus to me with a strong hand and instructed me that I should not walk in the way of this people. Right? Don't walk in the ways of Ephraim, rather the pride of Ephraim, the covetous people, uh, Ephraim being the United States of America, saying, Say ye not a confederacy to them, whom this people shall say, a confederacy. Right? So that's what you have the entire church and whatnot doing. Right? They're joining together, right? But they're not joining together with keeping the Ten Commandments. Neither fear ye their fear, nor be afraid. Right? The fear that you're supposed to have is to keep the Ten Commandments. That's the true fear of God. You see that in like Deuteronomy 6. But their fear towards God is not the keeping of the Ten Commandments. It's through doing these pagan feasts and these profane feasts in the polluted land. Um, Sanctify Jehovah of hosts himself, and let him be your fear, and let him be your dread. And he shall be for a sanctuary, but for a stone of stumbling, and for a rock of offense to both the house of Israel, for a gin and for a snare unto the inhabitants of Jerusalem. And many among them shall stumble, right? They're going to stumble at the law, and fall and be broken, and be snared and be taken. Right? And so since they don't have the testimony, the prophecy, and the law in them, they don't have any light in them. Um, but now finishing Malachi chapter 2, right? So many, like, they've caused many to stumble at the law by telling people to keep the entire burden of the sacrificial law, which Yeshua ended when he was on the cross, where he said, It is finished, quoting Deuteronomy 31, verse 24, right? Moses wrote all the words of the book of the law until it was finished. So Malachi 2, verse 9, or actually verse 8, ye have corrupted the covenant of Levi, saith Jehovah of hosts, where they've corrupted uh, the royal law by uh, judging unrighteously. Therefore, here have I also made you contemptible and base before all the people, according as ye have not kept my ways, but have been partial in the law. Right, because the Torah movement, they've been partial in the law, but not reading the full instruction, or they're not reading, oh, you only can do the feasts in the land. And then they're telling all the people that, oh, you got to do also the sacrificial law, putting all these burdens, which neither our fathers could bear. Where you see that in Acts 15. Have we not all one Father? Hath not one God created us? Why do we deal treacherously every man against his brother, by profaning the covenant of our fathers? Judah hath dealt treacherously, and an abomination is committed in Israel and in Jerusalem. For Judah hath profaned the holiness of Jehovah, which he loved, and hath married the daughter of a strange God. Jehovah will cut off the man that doeth this, the master and the scholar out of the tabernacles of Jacob, and him that offereth an offering unto Jehovah of hosts. And this have ye done again, covering the altar of Jehovah with tears, with weeping, and with crying out, insomuch that he regardeth not the offering more, or receiveth it with good will at your hand. Yea, ye say, wherefore? Because Jehovah hath been witness between thee and the wife of thy youth, against whom thou hast dealt treacherously, yet is she thy companion and the wife of thy covenant. Right, you go into Hosea 6, and Ephraim transgressed the holy covenant, right? The wife of your youth, because that's what it represents. Um, And did not he make one, yet had he the residue of the Spirit? And wherefore one? That he might seek a godly seed. Therefore take heed to your spirit, and let none deal treacherously against the wife of his youth. Right? Don't deal treacherously against breaking the Ten Commandments. Like, don't break the Ten Commandments. For Jehovah and then that's through like what Ephraim's doing is through covetousness, right? Through pride. For Jehovah, the God of Israel, saith that he hateth putting away, for uncovering violence with his garments, saith Jehovah of hosts. Therefore take heed to your spirits, that ye deal not treacherously, that ye don't break the Ten Commandments. Ye have wearied Jehovah with your words, yet ye say, wherein have we wearied him? When ye say, everyone that doeth evil is good in the sight of Jehovah. Right? That's what they all say. And that's why you have people that are persecuting the servants that are actually doing the right way. Um, yeah, everyone that doeth evil in the sight of Jehovah, or is good in the sight of Jehovah, and he delighteth in them. Or where is the God of judgment? Right? You got that how people say in Matthew 24 at the end, right? They say like, where is the Lord your God? And then they say, oh, the Lord delays his coming. Let's go back and eat and drink with the drunken. Right, and that's how you get these evil servants because they receive the holy commandments, the royal law, and then they turn from it thinking like, oh, like God's not really going to come, or we have plenty of time left. Let's just like build, like get a new fancy car, get a new house, or whatever. That's exactly what they're doing. We're supposed to be a servant until the end because it's only he that endures to the end. Um, And then Malachi 3 is a lot of stuff about Yeshua, because Yeshua is going to bring that holy covenant where John the Baptist is preparing his way. Malachi 4 talks a little bit about that as well. But yeah, that's all I wanted to read in this. But yeah, today's the Sabbath. Happy Sabbath. Um, and so yep, we got Sabbath gatherings on straightisthegate.net. Just make sure you go check that out.